Between galaxies where light fades and silence reigns, the Force begins to tremble. It twists and coils, torn between the light that gives it purpose and the darkness that hungers for control. The balance that has existed since the dawn of time fractures, and from that wound, a storm is born. The void churns. Stars flicker and die as the storm grows, a maelstrom of energy that stretches beyond the boundaries of any galaxy. Lightning made of pure will lashes across the darkness. It is not a natural storm. It is a scream in the fabric of the Force itself, something that should never exist. Within that chaos drifts a figure, his body battered, his breath shallow, his mind echoing with the last words of his master and the weight of every life he has taken. Starkiller, the shadow of the Sith, the failed savior of the Jedi, and the weapon that defied both. He reaches out through the storm, desperate to find something familiar, but there is nothing. No stars, no systems, no force that he recognizes. Only pain reality folds. Time cracks like glass. The storm implodes inward, swallowing him whole. For an instant, his senses stretch across eternity. He feels galaxies collapsing, stars dying, and countless minds screaming inside an ocean of madness. Then silence, the void spits him out. His body is no longer held by the calm current of the Force, but dragged through a rift that burns with 1,000 souls. The energy here is different, alive, chaotic, violent. It does not listen to his command. It hungers for it. Starkiller falls through the endless dark, a comet of fractured light and shadow. The storm behind him seals shut, leaving the galaxy he once knew forever beyond reach. He is not falling through space. He is falling through reality itself. And ahead of him, something vast watches from the other side, an ocean of raw emotion, rage, and despair. The warp. The Force trembles one last time as it collides with that impossible power. And in that moment, a new presence enters the galaxy of the 41st millennium. The Force has found the warp, and Starkiller has arrived. There is no sky, no stars, no horizon, only an ocean of colorless fire and sound that bleeds into thought. Starkiller falls endlessly through it, surrounded by shapes that are not shapes and voices that speak without words. This is not space. It is not even a place. It is the Imperium, the warp, the nightmare realm where emotion becomes substance and thought gives birth to monsters. The Force inside him thrashes wildly, trying to make sense of this alien dimension. It recoils from the energy that touches it. Every whisper here is pain, every vibration a scream. He feels the weight of hatred, lust, despair, and fear pressing against his mind like 1,000 blades. His breathing quickens. Even his power struggles to find meaning in this chaos. Starkiller closes his eyes and reaches inward, searching for the calm center he once used to channel the Force. But the calm is gone. The moment his mind opens, the warp answers back. It surges into him like a tide of molten thought. Every emotion he has ever buried comes roaring to the surface. Rage at his master, sorrow for those he killed, guilt and betrayal. The warp feeds on it all. Around him, creatures begin to take form. Vast silhouettes with wings of bone and faces made of screaming flame. They drift closer, tasting his presence. To them, he is a new kind of soul, pure power wrapped in human shape. Neither daemon nor god, but something different, something brighter. For the first time in uncounted ages, the demons pause, hesitating before they strike. Starkiller's fall slows. Lightning crackles around him, forming a cocoon of shifting energy. The Force, battered and bleeding, begins to adapt. It learns the language of this place. It bends, not breaks. The light within him fuses with the raw madness around him, creating something new, a storm that burns with purpose. He stretches out his hand, and the warp recoils. The nearest demon bursts apart, dissolved into ash and thought. The others retreat into the swirling dark. Even in this place of chaos, there is now something more terrifying than they have known. A will that does not submit. The storm swells again, carrying him deeper, faster, until the formless becomes solid, and the unreal gives way to matter. The warp spits him out, and for the first time since his fall, Starkiller sees a sky,
torn red and full of lightning.
A dying world waits below, ready to meet its new god. The storm spits him into existence. Gravity seizes him like a clenched fist, dragging his body down through the roiling sky. Lightning coils around him, drawn to the energy pulsing through his veins. He does not resist. He lets himself fall. The world below is broken beyond repair. Once it may have been a proud imperial planet, filled with cities, spires, and oceans.
Now it is nothing but dust and ruin.
Its name, long forgotten, lingers in the echoes of abandoned data archives. Virelia 9, a world stripped bare by endless wars and left to rot beneath a sky that never clears. The atmosphere tears apart as he enters. Fire wraps around him, but the flames do not consume him. They bend away, pushed aside by the invisible barrier of the Force. His descent becomes a meteor's scream, a trail of burning light carving through the endless night. From orbit, the fallen planet glows, as if a second sun were being born. The impact is cataclysmic. The ground convulses. A ring of molten rock erupts outward, vaporizing anything that remains of life. The shockwave rolls across the wasteland, toppling blackened towers and scattering the bones of the forgotten. For miles the horizon glows white. When the dust finally settles, there is silence. The crater yawns like an open wound, its edges rimmed with glass and fire. At its center, half buried in the molten earth, Starkiller stirs. His armor is scorched, his flesh torn, but his pulse remains steady. Steam rises from his skin, and the air crackles with residual power. He opens his eyes. They glow not with the calm of a Jedi nor the malice of a Sith, but with something older, a raw, elemental fury. The force within him is no longer what it was. It hums with alien resonance, twisted by the warp's touch, deeper, heavier, and alive. Slowly, he stands. The heat does not burn him. The air, thick with radiation and ash, fills his lungs like breath from another life. Around him, shattered fragments of machinery litter the landscape, rusted tanks, broken banners, skulls fused into the ground by centuries of conflict. Starkiller looks to the horizon.
Lightning dances across the sky, each strike revealing the jagged silhouettes of ruined cathedrals.
He can feel them, minds scattered across the wastes.
Weak, corrupted, afraid.
They sense him too. Whispers rise through the wind, a fallen star.
A god of light. A new power has come. The force trembles.
The warp stirs, and somewhere beneath the layers of ash, the dead world of Virelia 9 begins to awaken. The silence stretches.
Heavy and endless, broken only by the soft hiss of cooling stone.
The air is thick with static, each breath tasting of metal and ozone. At the heart of the crater, Starkiller stands motionless, surrounded by the smoking wreckage of his own arrival. The force hums inside him like a wounded beast, reshaping itself around the strange, alien energy of this new universe. He raises his hand.
A faint tremor ripples through the air.
Dust rises, small stones float, and the scorched earth beneath his boots cracks open. The force answers his call, but it feels different. not pure, not balanced. It growls with something wild and ancient, laced with whispers that are not his own. Every thought he sends outward meets 100 voices screaming back. He closes his eyes and focuses. His mind drifts inward, searching for the steady rhythm of life, the pulse that once tied him to every living thing. But here that pulse is wrong. It beats with pain, hatred, hunger.
It bleeds through the Force like a wound that never heals.
The Imperium has poisoned this place, and now it seeps into him. A spark flickers behind his eyes. He reaches deeper, commanding the power to obey. The air crackles.
Lightning erupts from his fingertips. But it is not the blue-white fire of the Force he once knew.
It burns green and sickly, warped by the psychic storms that blanket this world. The ground shatters beneath him, glowing with faint symbols that twist and vanish like ghosts. He looks at his hands, breathing hard. The Force has changed, but it has not left him. It adapts just as he does. Slowly, he kneels and presses his palm to the earth. Through the fractured soil, he feels echoes of life, twisted and feral. There are minds out there, waiting, watching. Creatures born from chaos, drawn to power like moths to flame. A distant scream cuts through the storm, then another. Shadows move beyond the crater's edge, shapes that were once human, now crawling things with bone masks and blackened skin. They smell of burnt oil and rot. Chaos cultists, scavengers who worship anything that kills. They see him standing amidst fire and glass, his skin glowing faintly with emerald light, and they freeze. To them he is a vision, a god risen from the ashes. They fall to their knees, muttering broken prayers to a new master. Starkiller does not speak. The memory of his master's betrayal still burns in his chest. He has no desire for followers, but their voices grate against his mind like static, and the growing noise of their devotion fills him with unease. He turns away, but the Force whispers through him again, urging restraint. Not yet, not until he understands where he is. The wind shifts. Clouds of ash roll across the plains, and somewhere beyond the horizon, something massive stirs. The faint pulse of engines, the rhythm of marching boots. The Force warns him, more are coming. Soldiers, machines, men who fight for a god he has never known. Starkiller lifts his gaze to the bleeding sky. His power hums quietly, alive and waiting. The awakening is complete. The galaxy has felt his arrival. The storm howls across the wasteland, carrying the stench of rust and blood. From the shadows that surround the crater, figures crawl closer. Broken silhouettes wrapped in rags and iron chains. Their flesh is carved with symbols, their eyes glowing faintly in the dark. They are the survivors of this dead world, but they are no longer human. They are worshippers of the warp. They drag banners made of skin, marked with the 8-pointed star of chaos. Their chants rise in uneven rhythm, each word a prayer to gods that do not listen. To them, every storm is a sign, every flame a message from beyond. And now they believe their prayers have been answered. At the crater's edge, they stop. The ground still burns, glowing with green fire that refuses to die. In its center stands the one who fell from the sky, tall, scarred, and surrounded by a halo of crackling energy. They can feel him before they see him, a pressure in the air that bends their thoughts, makes their hearts stutter. The bravest among them steps forward, trembling. He raises a rusted blade, his voice shaking. "Great One," he croaks.
Chosen of the dark gods.
The prophecy was true. The Starborn comes to lead us. Starkiller stares at them, eyes unreadable. His body is still heavy from the fall, but the Force stirs restlessly inside him. He senses their minds, twisted, hungry, broken beyond repair. There is no peace here, no compassion, only madness wrapped in faith. Their devotion feels wrong, poisonous, like a weight pressing down on his soul. He takes a step forward, and the earth trembles. The cultists gasp, falling to their knees. They chant louder, their cries echoing across the crater. More of them emerge from the fog, hundreds now crawling over each other to get closer, desperate to touch the miracle they think has come to save them. Something inside Starkiller snaps. The force recoils, responding to his disgust, his anger. Energy gathers around him, swirling in a rising storm of light and ash. He raises his hand. The first bolt of lightning strikes without warning. Green fire erupts from his palm, exploding through the air like a living storm. The front ranks of cultists disintegrate instantly, their bodies reduced to ash before they can scream. The blast spreads outward in a perfect circle, tearing through flesh, armor, and stone alike. Those farther away are thrown into the air, their bones shattering as they hit the ground. When the light fades, the crater is silent again. Smoke curls over blackened soil. The smell of burning flesh lingers. Starkiller lowers his hand slowly, breathing hard. The power he unleashed still hums in the air, refusing to fade. He feels it coursing through him, wild, immense, intoxicating. The warp's corruption laces every spark of lightning, amplifying it beyond anything he has ever felt. He looks down at the scorched ground. The force within him is alive, but it is no longer his alone. The warp has begun to shape it, to whisper promises through the storm. He pushes the voices aside and steps over the fallen. Far away in the dark between worlds, something ancient takes notice. The ripple of his power travels through the Imperium like a beacon, drawing eyes that have not opened in millennia. Demons stir. The gods of chaos turn their gaze, and on Virelia nigh, beneath the blood-red sky, the galaxy begins to whisper a new name, the Starborn, the one who bends lightning and light itself. The echoes of the slaughter drift through the atmosphere like a scream carried on the wind. The psychic shock of Starkiller's power reverberates through the warp, reaching far beyond Virelia 9. In orbit above the dying planet, Imperial Auspex sensors flare with alarms.
Vox traffic floods with static and panic.
Every psyker aboard the fleet doubles over in agony, clutching their heads as blood trickles from their noses. An inquisitorial vessel hangs in the void. The Sanctus Veritas, a black-armored ship bearing the sigil of the Ordo Hereticus. Inside, the ship's chapel glows with dim candlelight. An inquisitor kneels before a shrine, his hand resting on a rosarius still slick with oil. He has heard the reports, a storm of psychic energy strong enough to erase an entire city in one pulse. His mind is cold, methodical, trained to see patterns in madness. He knows what this means: demon, heresy, extermination. He stands, his eyes like steel.
Order the descent.
Burn whatever walks that world. Moments later, the Sanctus Veritas splits open the clouds. Gunships descend through the storm, their engines howling as they cut through lightning and ash. Purity seals flutter in the wind. Below them, the crater still smoulders, a wound in the planet's surface, glowing faintly green. The first transport lands on the ridge. Stormtroopers pour out, their armor painted with holy symbols, their laser guns humming. Servo skulls hover ahead, scanning the ruins. The data they send back is impossible. Radiation levels off the charts, yet a single life sign still burns at the center.
Not human, not known, not sane. The Inquisitor steps out last, his boots crunching on glass.
He raises his eyes to the horizon, and there he sees it. The figure standing in the crater's heart, framed by lightning, unmoving, almost calm. The sight fills him with something he has not felt in years: uncertainty. Starkiller stands silent amid the wreckage. The ashes of the cultists swirl around him, carried by the wind like a black halo. His armor glows faintly, the cracks in it pulsing with green light. He senses the newcomers before they speak, the sharp edge of discipline and fear that defines them. Their minds are focused but fragile. The first command rings out through Vox amplifiers.
Open fire! Dozens of laser guns ignite at once, streaks of red light cutting through the air.
The shots never reach him. Starkiller lifts his hand, and the beams curve, bending harmlessly away, as if space itself has turned against them. He feels their weapons, their energy, their fear. The force swells in his chest, and with a single motion, he releases it. The ground erupts. The shockwave blasts outward in a perfect sphere, tossing soldiers like leaves in a storm. The nearest gunship tilts sideways, its engine screaming as it spirals down. It crashes into the ridge, a bloom of fire consuming everything in its path. The Inquisitor staggers back, shielding his face from the heat. His Vox crackles with dying screams. Through the haze, he sees the figure walking forward, slow, steady, unstoppable. He grips his bolt pistol and fires. The shot never lands. Starkiller raises his hand, and the weapon is torn from the Inquisitor's grasp, crushed in midair. Their eyes meet. The Inquisitor sees no demon, no corruption, only rage, contained and endless. He tries to speak the Emperor's name, but his voice fails him. Starkiller stops just beyond the wreckage. The force hums in the air, alive, furious, unbound. He could end them all with a thought, yet something holds him back. A faint whisper. Deep inside, the voice of a man long gone. Control, focus, balance. He turns away, and the soldiers who remain alive drop to their knees in stunned silence. Behind him, the crater burns brighter, a beacon of impossible power. Far above, the surviving ships record the event and transmit it across the segmentum. The message spreads faster than light, carried by rumor, fear, and faith. A psychic weapon has appeared. A being that defies every law of the Imperium. A man who walks through fire and turns armies to ash. And somewhere, deep in the Inquisition's archives, a single report is marked for the eyes of the High Lords of Terror. Designation: the Starborn Anomaly. Status beyond classification. Recommendation: Exterminatus authorization pending. Hours pass. The sky above Virelia Nime is torn by smoke and lightning, the ground still trembling from the clash that ended an entire regiment in moments. The survivors of the Inquisition strike force regroup miles away, haunted and shaken. They speak of a being that walks through fire, a storm made flesh, and a presence that crushed their faith as easily as their bones. In orbit, aboard the command vessel Sanctus Veritas, the Inquisitor paces across the bridge. His armor bears fresh cracks from the psychic shockwave. Every deck reeks of incense and scorched metal. Data feeds flicker. Half the ship's servitors lie dead from neural overload. Yet his fury remains sharp, unshaken by doubt. He turns to his officers.
That thing is no man.
It is a demon.
If we fail to destroy it, it will damn every soul on this world. Ready the orbital cannons.
Comments, planetary cleansing. Prayers echo through the ship as crews take their stations. Red runes flare to life across the consoles. In the cold silence of orbit, the cannons turn toward the surface. Below, Starkiller stands upon the scorched plain, surrounded by twisted wreckage and drifting ash. He feels the shift in the air, the gathering energy far above. His senses stretch outward. The sky hums. The force whispers a warning. Death descending from the heavens. He looks up just as the bombardment begins. Columns of fire fall from the clouds. The earth splits apart. oceans of molten glass bursting outward. The light is blinding. Entire mountains disintegrate. For a moment, even the Force seems to falter beneath the fury of the Imperium's wrath. At the center of that apocalypse, Starkiller braces himself. He raises both hands and the Force answers. Invisible walls of energy form around him, but the onslaught is relentless. Heat sears his skin, his armor cracks, the world itself tries to bury him. The warp stirs again, sensing his struggle, feeding on his defiance. He roars into the storm, and the storm roars back. The barrier around him shatters outward. The explosion of psychic power tears through the flames, pushing the inferno aside. The bombardment ceases. Silence falls. In orbit, alarms blare across the bridge of the Sanctis Veritas. Impact readings spike beyond measure. Radiation floods the scanners. And then movement.
A single, impossible signal rising through the devastation. The Inquisitor leans forward, disbelief breaking through his command mask.
Nothing could have survived that. Nothing, but the readings grow stronger. A pulse of energy climbs from the surface, accelerating, alive, enraged. He barely has time to speak before the ship trembles. Something slams into the lower hull with the force of a meteor. Bulkheads buckle. Gravity flickers. The bridge shudders. A streak of green fire cuts through the void. Starkiller has leapt into orbit, propelled by sheer will, the force burning through every cell of his body. He crashes through the ship's armored spine, tearing through decks like a thunderbolt given flesh. Crewmen are hurled into the air.
Vox channels erupt with screams.
The Inquisitor grips his Rosarius and draws his power sword, but the air is already bending. The walls implode. A figure steps through the wreckage, smoke and light swirling around him. His eyes blaze with the fury of stars. "You tried to burn me," he says, his voice low and trembling with power. The Inquisitor raises his weapon in shaking hands. Then the Force moves. Metal folds. Consoles crush inward. The entire command deck bends like soft clay around the Inquisitor's body. His final breath is lost in the roar of collapsing steel. Outside, the Sanctis Veritas drifts, broken and bleeding, its hull split open. The light of its fires fades into the endless dark. Starkiller steps into the void, standing on the shattered hull, his cape torn to ribbons, his body outlined by the glow of burning debris. He looks down at the dead world below and then up at the distant stars. They will come for him again. He knows it, and this time he will not wait. The wreck of the Sanctis Veritas burns across the upper atmosphere, scattering debris that glows like dying stars. Below, Virelia 9 lies still. The bombardment has ended. The firestorm has eaten itself to silence. From the ground, it looks as though the heavens themselves were wounded, rivers of light bleeding across the sky. Hours pass before the first signals reach the wider Imperium. A transmission, fragmented and impossible to believe, leaks from a crippled Vox relay in orbit.
It speaks of a man who walked through orbital fire, who shattered a warship with his hands, who rose into the void wrapped in stormlight.
The words spread faster than sensors can erase them. Across nearby systems, astropaths feel it first, a pulse in the warp, rhythmic and clear, like a heartbeat echoing through eternity. Every psyker hears the same word whispered in their mind, Starborn. On Virelia's surface, survivors crawl from their shelters and see the crater where their world died. At its center stands the same figure, surrounded by molten glass that still glows faintly green. He does not speak. He simply stands against the wind, his cloak torn, his eyes reflecting the fires above. Pilgrims from the wastelands gather, drawn by instinct more than thought. They kneel among the ruins and begin to chant. They do not understand what they worship, only that something divine has walked among them. High above, aboard the surviving Imperial frigate Vigil of Faith, officers argue over what they have witnessed. Some call for immediate exterminatus. Others insist it was a manifestation of the Emperor's will. The captain merely stares at the tactical feed, watching a lone heat signature wander across the dead planet's surface. The signal does not weaken. It grows. Within days, the rumor reaches a dozen worlds. The tale changes with every retelling. Some say an angel fell from the sky to punish the faithless.
Others claim a demon of light rose to challenge the Emperor himself.
Whatever the version, the name remains the same, the Starborn. The Stormwalker, the god of the fracture. On frontier worlds, frightened priests burn icons and rewrite their sermons. In hive cities, gangs paint crude lightning symbols on the walls and whisper that the Imperium saints have a new brother. Even among the Inquisition, the debate turns to fear. A power that defies classification, neither heretic nor divine, has appeared. Starkiller hears none of this. He walks alone through the ash fields, feeling the currents of this galaxy tug at his mind. The force, his force, beats within him, reshaped by the warp until every breath hums with violence. He can feel eyes watching from across the stars, some mortal, some not. He does not know it yet, but his fall has become a spark, and the galaxy is tinder. A legend has been born. Far beyond the edge of reality, beyond the reach of light and reason, the Imperium stirs. The warp has no eyes, no shape, no breath, but it knows, it feels. And now something alien has entered its domain, something that does not belong to its design. Whispers ripple through the storms of madness like wind through glass. Entire currents of thought twist around a single name carried through the psychic sea. Starborn. To the demons that drift within its endless waves, the presence is intoxicating, a flavor never tasted before. Power without faith, will without worship,
Rage without corruption. In the palaces of eternity, the four great powers turn their gaze. From his spire of impossible geometry, Tzeentch, the changer of ways, uncoils with quiet delight.
His 1,000 eyes flicker open, studying the fractures in destiny that Starkiller's arrival has carved. Threads of fate bend around him in wild arcs, no longer following the patterns he designed. One thread glows brighter than all others, a soul that reshapes the warp without meaning to. He laughs softly, a sound like the turning of pages written in flame. A new game begins. Across a garden of shadows, Slaanesh awakens. The air shivers with pleasure and pain as the Prince of Excess leans forward upon a throne of living flesh. The psychic echo of Starkiller's power is exquisite, raw, and violent, yet guided by discipline. It is neither chaos nor control, but something between. The sound of his heartbeat alone makes the god of sensation smile.
I must hear it again. In the Garden of Decay, Nurgle stirs.
His laughter is deep and tired, like thunder rolling over rot. He watches the ripples spread and sighs. So much death, he murmurs, yet no joy in the dying. He will learn in time.
Everything does, and in the Crimson Citadel, upon a throne forged of brass and skulls, Khorne raises his head.
For eons the blood god has feasted on rage, on the fury of mortals and the slaughter of gods. But this presence, this Starborn, carries fury unclaimed by any creed, burns without sacrifice, without devotion, a flame that owes him nothing. Khorne's nostrils flare. His grip tightens around the haft of his axe. For the first time in an age, his lips curl into something like a smile. Across the warp, storms gather. Demon princes halt their duels to watch the visions forming in the psychic winds. They see Starkiller standing on a scorched world, lightning dancing around him, his will bending the raw power of the warp itself, without prayer, without name, without chain. To them, this is heresy of the highest kind, a mortal stealing the god's language and daring to speak it. Yet none move against him. Not yet. They are watching, learning, waiting to see if this alien flame will consume itself or burn their dominion to ash. On the edge of Virelia 90's orbit, the storms above the planet thicken. Red lightning traces symbols across the sky that no mortal tongue can pronounce. The warp is watching, and the warp is whispering. And in its whispers, a new truth begins to form. The galaxy has given birth to something the gods did not create. The skies above Virelia 9 never rest.
Lightning crawls like veins through the clouds, thunder rolling like the growl of an unseen god.
In the silence beneath that endless storm, Starkiller walks alone. The crater where he first struck the planet still burns behind him, a scar visible from orbit. Each step he takes hums with energy, the ground vibrating faintly under his boots. He closes his eyes, trying to center himself in the Force, the same way he once did in another galaxy, another life. But the moment his mind reaches outward, it meets something vast and feral. The calm current of the Force, once familiar and obedient, has been infected. It is thicker now, heavier, like walking through blood instead of air. Every thought, every breath, every flicker of emotion echoes through it and returns to him 1,000-fold. This is not the Force. This is the warp, the raw, endless sea of every mind, every sin, every prayer that has ever existed. He feels them.
Billions of voices layered atop one another, some human, some not, all bleeding together into madness.
They claw at his consciousness like desperate hands, begging, cursing, screaming. In this galaxy, faith itself has weight. Thought has form.
Rage has teeth. The Force within him reacts violently, pushing back against the intrusion. Lightning crackles across his body, bright blue colliding with sickly green.
For an instant, the two powers struggle for dominance, one shaped by discipline, the other born of chaos. He falls to one knee, clutching his head as the world shudders. Visions flash behind his eyes. He sees armies marching beneath banners of gold and skulls, entire planets burning in the name of gods he does not know. He sees men praying to machines, their faith wrapped in metal and oil. He sees beings made of pure thought, demons, emotions given shape and hunger, all of it flowing, feeding, consuming. He gasps and forces his mind to anchor, to remember who he is, the apprentice of Vader, the one who defied the Empire, the weapon that broke its chains. The memory steadies him. The Force, sensing his will, surges outward in response, pure and sharp. The warp recoils. For the first time in millennia, the Imperium meets resistance, not from faith or fear, but from something alien, disciplined, living. The collision of the two powers sends ripples across reality. Demons lurking in the ether scream and vanish. The storms above Virelia twist, forming a vast spiral of light that stretches into space. Starkiller rises slowly, his eyes blazing. The Force and the warp now intertwine within him, two storms sharing one vessel. He can feel both feeding on his emotion, amplifying his every thought. His anger sharpens into power, his doubt into flame. He stretches out his hand. The ground splits open. A column of light erupts skyward, scattering clouds like chaff. From orbit, it looks as though a new sun has been born upon the dead world. Far away, in the corridors of a Mechanicus observatory, alarms blare. Machine priests fall to their knees in awe and terror, their sensors picking up readings that defy logic. Across the sector, psychers wake screaming, their eyes burning with green fire. Something impossible has happened. The Force has merged with the warp, and in the center of it all stands Starkiller, breathing hard, his voice a low growl carried by the wind. If this galaxy wants war, then war it will have. The storm on Virelia Nuln becomes a beacon. Its energy bleeds through the void, a flare of psychic fire so intense that it blinds astropaths across neighboring systems. In the halls of Imperial command ships, alarms sound.
Vox networks crackle with frantic voices.
The Mechanicus calls it an anomaly.
The Inquisition calls it heresy.
The Astra Militarum calls it an invasion, and so they come. From the black gulf of space, the fleet of battle group Solarian emerges. Dozens of Imperial warships, their hulls etched with scripture, their cannons blessed with oil and prayer. The flagship, his divine wrath, takes position above the ruined planet. Servo skulls swarm the bridge, whispering litanies of focus as augurs lock onto the energy storm below. Reports fill the Vox. Massive psychic readings, non-demonic origin, unknown power classification, segmentum command orders immediate containment. The Lord Captain turns to the towering figure standing behind him, a warrior clad in ceramite and gold, helm engraved with the twin-headed eagle, a space marine, brother Captain Varix of the Grey Knights, silent and grim. Varix's voice is calm, like steel dragged across stone. No mortal could survive that storm. If it lives, it is no man, the captain nods. Prepare descent. Purge the anomaly. Dropships scream through the sky, wrapped in flame and faith. They fall like meteors landing in precise formation around the crater. The ground quakes as the first wave disembarks. Bolters hum, wards glow. Each Grey Knight chants a battle hymn as their psychic auras ignite, weaving protective fields against corruption. At the crater's heart, Starkiller senses them before he sees them. Their minds burn with discipline, their thoughts like sharpened blades, precise, trained, unyielding. They move as one, and for the first time since his arrival, he feels something close to familiarity. Soldiers. Warriors who fight without question, but their faith is not his. The Grey Knights advance in silence, silver armor reflecting the green fire that dances along the horizon. At their center, Varix raises his nemesis blade, its edge glowing with psychic light. By the Emperor's will, creature, you are banished. Starkiller does not move. The Force hums around him, whispering caution. But the warp within him growls for blood. He reaches out a hand and gravity bends. Bolters twist in their owner's grips. Armor plates groan, and the air itself thickens. The first Knight fires. The bolt shell halts mid-flight, spinning slowly before reversing direction and exploding in its launcher. The blast tears through the squad, shredding ceramite. Varix shouts a warning, but it is drowned by thunder. Starkiller lifts his other hand. The earth rises like a wave, throwing tanks and drop pods into the air. Lightning arcs from his body, slamming into the ranks of silver warriors. Their armor, warded by runes and faith, holds for a heartbeat, then fails. One by one they fall, consumed by storms that burn both flesh and soul. Varix charges through the smoke, his blade blazing with psychic flame. He moves faster than thought, his strike guided by a lifetime of devotion. The sword connects, and for a moment the world pauses. The blade bites into Starkiller's side, cutting through armor, through skin, through will. Pain blossoms, but not as he knows it. The warp within him drinks the agony, feeding on it. His eyes flare brighter, his power surging. He grabs the Grey Knight by the chest and hurls him through a dropship, tearing the craft apart in a single motion. Varix crashes to the ground, his armor cracked, his faith shaken. He stares upward as Starkiller rises through the smoke, lightning crawling across his wounds. The knight whispers a prayer, not in fear, but in awe.
Emperor, what have we found?
The surviving ships in orbit detect the sudden spike of psychic output, a storm blooming from the planet's surface like a second sun. In that instant, all communication with the ground ceases. From the bridge of his divine wrath, the Lord Captain watches his screens fill with static. The last image shows a man standing alone amid fire and ruins, his hands raised toward the heavens, power surging around him like a living star. Then the feed goes dark. Silence spreads across the fleet. Even the machine spirits hesitate. No one speaks. No one dares to, because what they saw was not a demon. It was something worse, a man who no longer needed gods. Across the void, word spreads faster than light. Fleets whisper of an entity that broke a Grey Knight company and tore through orbital fire unscathed.
Vox channels are flooded, and astropathic choirs collapse mid-song.
The echo of Starkiller's power reverberates through the warp like a hammer striking the galaxy's heart. On holy terror, within the sanctum of the Imperial Palace, the High Lords gather in panic. Marble halls tremble as astropaths scream and fall dead. Reports pour in from every segmentum. Ships vanishing, psychic storms flaring without cause, entire systems silenced. Every trail leads back to one world. Virelia 9. At the head of the chamber stands Robout Guilliman, Lord Commander of the Imperium. His armor gleams like forged dawn, his face calm, unreadable. He listens as inquisitors and admirals argue, their voices rising like the tide. Demon, some insist.
Heretic god, others whisper.
The data is impossible, yet the fear is real. Guilliman says nothing for a long time. When he finally speaks, his voice carries the weight of centuries. If this being has truly faced the Grey Knights and survived, then we are not dealing with a demon. We face something new. An inquisitor slams his fist against the table. Then we purge it. We have the Emperor's light, his will, his weapons. We can end this before it spreads. Guilliman's eyes flick toward the golden throne, visible beyond the chamber's high gates. The light of the astronomican flickers, unstable for the first time in memory. The Emperor does not answer. Guilliman steps closer to the window that overlooks the polluted sky of terror. He can feel it too. The tremor in the warp, the hum in the air. Whatever this starborn is, it has touched something even the Chaos Gods had not dared to reshape. He turns to his advisors. Prepare a containment fleet. Send the custodes to observe. And summon the Ordo Malleus. I want every psychic sensor fixed on that world. The Inquisitors bow, but Guilliman's gaze does not leave the throne. For the first time since his resurrection, he senses not guidance from his father, but absence, a silence that chills the soul. He knows what it means. The Emperor feels it too. This presence in the warp, this ripple that refuses to bow. But even he remains silent. Across the stars, the church of the ecclesiarchy begins to fracture. Preachers cry that the Emperor has turned his face away. Others declare that the Starborn is his herald returned. Pilgrims kneel before the storms that sweep through the void, whispering prayers to both. And somewhere in the warp, the gods listen, amused. The galaxy waits for an answer, but none comes. The Emperor is silent. Beyond the stars, where the veil between reality and madness grows thin, the warp stirs with curiosity. The being who defied the Inquisition and silenced the Grey Knights now burns like a living wound in its tides. His power bleeds through the Imperium, neither faith nor corruption, but something the gods cannot shape. From that endless sea of thought and hunger, a shadow forms. A whisper curls through the storm, subtle, patient, coaxing. On Virelianae, Starkiller stands alone atop the shattered remains of a fortress once built by the Mechanicus. The wind whips through the broken spires, carrying dust and ash.
Lightning dances between his fingers as he gazes at the horizon.
He feels it again. Eyes that are not eyes watching him, the slow crawl of something vast pressing at the edges of his mind. He has sensed these whispers before, but now they speak in words. You are power. You are purpose. You are what even the gods envy. The voice is liquid and shifting, each syllable layered in thousands of tones. It promises understanding, mastery, immortality.
Images flood his mind. Armies of demons bowing in reverence, stars collapsing at his command, galaxies bent to his will.
A figure coalesces before him, tall, graceful, impossible to define. Its skin ripples with colors that should not exist, its wings made of mirrored smoke. Tzeentch, the changer of ways, manifests not with roar or flame, but with a smile. Child of another cosmos, the god whispers. You wield a power beyond any mortal, yet you crawl in the dust of forgotten worlds. Why serve nothing when you could rule everything? Starkiller stares unblinking. The force hums within him, wary, guarded. I know your kind, he says quietly.
I've bowed to a master once.
I won't kneel again. Tzeentch tilts its head, the motion both serpent and human. The warp ripples, revealing glimpses of futures uncountable. Starkiller standing atop Terra's golden palace, his hand raised as a sun of lightning devours the sky. You misunderstand, the god croons. Kneeling is for the weak.
I offer partnership.
You are raw potential, unrefined.
I can make you eternal.
I can teach you to command the warp as you once commanded the force. With my guidance, you could end the gods themselves. The promise burns sweetly, like the echo of a forgotten dream. For a heartbeat, Starkiller's mind trembles. His power swells, eager, hungry. He remembers Vader's voice, the Empire's betrayal, the hollow ache of endless war. He remembers how every teacher had used him, shaped him, lied to him. And then he remembers his own words, his last before his death in another life.
I am no one's weapon. Lightning surges through his body.
The sky splits open, thunder rolling like laughter. The warp-born figure steps back as Starkiller ignites both of his lightsabers, their blades cutting through the storm, one blue, one red, symbols of every choice he has ever made. He speaks, his voice steady, cold. You call yourself the master of change. Then change this. He moves. In a flash of light and fury, he slashes through the vision. The form of Tzeentch shatters like glass, splintering into shards of color and sound. The storm collapses, leaving only silence and the smell of ozone. The warp recoils. The god's laughter echoes faintly through the void, distant and unreadable. Interesting, it murmurs. Let us see how long defiance lasts. Starkiller stands alone again, his blades fading, his breath steady. He knows now what the warp wants, to tempt him, to twist him, to own him, but it will find no master here. He turns his gaze skyward, toward the stars, still burning beyond the ash. The force within him burns brighter, tempered by defiance. The galaxy will learn his name not as servant, not as pawn, but as storm. And deep in the Imperium, the chaos gods whisper among themselves. The alien refuses them. The mortal stands against eternity, and, for the first time in the history of the warp, the gods feel something close to fear. The warp may have recoiled, but the galaxy never sleeps. Word of the Starborn spreads from dying worlds to the cold edges of Segmentum Tempestus. What was once rumor becomes gospel. What was once fear becomes frenzy. And nowhere does frenzy thrive more than among the greenskins. On the forge world of Kragan Theta, the sky is a constant haze of smoke and gunfire. Mountains of scrap rise higher than cathedrals, and the ground shakes beneath the thunder of crude engines. Here, millions of Orks gather under one banner, a storm of iron, oil, and laughter. They are drawn not by conquest or plunder, but by instinct, by the echo of something powerful, something green, something worth fighting. It begins with a sound, not a signal, not a message, an emotion. The psychic pulse of Starkiller's battle with the Grey Knights has travelled across the warp like the beating of a war drum, and the Orks have felt it. To them, it is not horror, but music. They call it da-boom, heard round to stars. Warboss Gazduk. Skullgrinder slams his power claw into the table, scattering grot messengers. His red bionic eye flickers with excitement.
There's something big out there, boys. Something smashing planets.
The Orks around him cheer, bellowing, their laughter shaking the fortress walls. From every system, the call spreads. Warbands drop what they're doing, sieges, raids, brawls, and look to the stars. Every mech, weird boy, and pain boy swears they feel the same pull in their teeth and bones, a fight like no other. And so the largest wah in a generation begins to form. Ships cobbled from stolen wrecks and asteroids roar to life.
Engines scream.
Space itself becomes filled with crude, burning vessels streaking green fire. They are not united by plan or command, only by the promise of war. On Virelia 9, Starkiller senses them long before they arrive. The air trembles, the horizon splits with light. His power ripples outward, feeling their approach through the warp. They come not as enemies, not as conquerors, but as something stranger, pilgrims of violence. The first ships tear through the sky like falling meteors. They crash into the surface with joyous explosions.
Orks pour out in waves, howling, laughing, firing wildly at the heavens.
Their banners flap in the radioactive wind, each one painted with the same new glyph, a blazing star split by a jagged line of lightning. The greenskins believe this world is the home of their new god. They believe he is the greatest fight in existence. Starkiller watches from a ridge, cloak whipping in the gale. The force hums inside him, warning of danger, but curiosity burns brighter. He has seen armies driven by fear, greed, and obedience, but never by joy.
The psychic field, the wah!
Crackles in the air like static, raw power born of collective madness. When the first Orks spot him, they stop shooting. They stare, a tall figure wrapped in smoke and lightning, his eyes glowing like dying suns. To them, he is the perfect vision of what they dream to be. Then one of them laughs.
There he is.
To Big Boss of Bosses.
Let's have a go at him.
The ground shakes as thousands charge. The sound is deafening, boots stomping, engines roaring, weapons firing. Starkiller stands his ground. The force swells, the warp stirs, and for a moment he almost smiles. They want war, so he gives it to them. With a sweep of his arm, a storm of lightning erupts across the plain. Dozens of Orks vanish in an instant, vaporized where they stand. The survivors cheer, howling with delight. The sky splits apart under the force of his power, and their laughter only grows louder. Hours turn into days. The battle becomes an endless dance of chaos and carnage. Starkiller moves like a living storm, tearing through hordes, crushing tanks and hurling entire mobs into the sky. Yet, no matter how many fall, more arrive, each eager to face their god. And in that madness, something strange happens. Their belief, their excitement, their endless desire for a bigger fight feeds him.
Wow!
Field collides with the Force, amplifying every strike, every pulse of energy. His lightning grows brighter, his reach farther. The more they cheer, the stronger he becomes. To them, it is not defeat, it is worship. When the final roar fades and the plains are littered with ash, the Orks that remain kneel, bloodied but grinning. They beat their chests and shout his new name into the smoke-filled air. Dar Starboss, Dar Stormgit, Dar God who fights back. And above them, Starkiller stands surrounded by ruin, his power burning brighter than ever. For the first time, he understands what this galaxy feeds on. Not faith, not fear, belief. And belief, he realizes, can make anything real. When the fires of battle finally fade, Viralia 9 no longer resembles a world. The plains have melted into black glass, mountains are broken to dust, and the air burns green with the residue of psychic energy. Yet even amid the ruin, a rhythm echoes through the silence. Drums, crude and thunderous, carved from metal and bone. The Orks have not fled. They remain. From the scattered wreckage of their crashed ships they build. From the bones of their dead they craft banners. Across the wasteland, mobs of survivors gather around crude effigies, towering shapes hammered together from scrap and fused rock. Each one bears the same mark. A star cracked open by a bolt of lightning, they chant and beat their drums, filling the ash-thick sky with their guttural hymns.
Not out of fear, not out of duty.
But celebration, their god had not slain them. He had fought them. He had tested them. And that to Orks is the greatest gift a god can give. At the center of the storm, Starkiller sits upon the shattered hull of an Ork lander.
Around him the air shimmers with green fire. Not from the warp alone, but from something deeper. The psychic field of the Orks, the Wah,
throbs in the air like a living heart. He feels it brushing against his mind. It is not subtle or controlled. It is chaos distilled, raw emotion given form through laughter, violence, and belief. The same field that empowers their impossible machines now wraps around him like invisible flame. The force within him trembles.
It does not reject this new power.
It absorbs it. The two energies, the disciplined flow of the force and the wild storm of the Wah, collide, then merge.
His pulse quickens. His strength surges.
Every beat of his heart sends waves of power radiating across the land. He stands, eyes burning brighter than the lightning overhead. The world seems to bend with him. Rocks lift from the ground, metal twists and groans, and the green fire dances higher. Below, thousands of Orks drop to their knees. They see him standing amidst the storm and feel it in their bones. The raw pulse of war that defines their race. To them, he is no longer just a powerful being. He is the embodiment of their creed, a god born not from the warp, but from the very idea of battle. Wah!
One Ork bellows, pointing at the sky.
To Starboss roars again. The cry spreads. Soon the plains thunder with millions of voices. To Starboss!
To Storm God! Wah!
The noise is deafening. The air itself vibrates with psychic resonance. The Orks' faith, their unshakable, joyful certainty, channels through the Wah field straight into Starkiller. He feels it feeding him, filling him, transforming him. Lightning erupts from his body in tendrils that stretch for miles. The clouds boil in response. The storm takes shape, a swirling green cyclone visible from orbit. Within it, his power is absolute, but with every surge, something else stirs. The Warp watches again, fascinated.
Its energies writhe and twist, trying to understand this creature that feeds not on worship or fear, but on belief itself. On the highest ridge, Starkiller looks down upon the sea of green faces.
He should feel disgust, maybe pity.
Instead, he feels something else. Purpose. For the first time since leaving his galaxy, he knows what he has become.
Not Jedi, not Sith, not servant, not soldier, a storm, a god of motion and defiance. He turns his gaze to the sky, where countless Ork ships still fall through the clouds, drawn by instinct to the beacon of his power.
The largest war
in history is converging not to conquer but to witness. God walks among them, a god who fights back, and above the chaos, the galaxy trembles. For the laughter of the Orks has reached the stars, and with it, a new name spreads through the warp, the god of the green storm. The laughter of the Orks does not stop. It rolls across the stars, carried by the psychic winds of the warp. For the Imperium of man, it is not mere sound. It is blasphemy that cracks through the hymns of the faithful, echoing inside the dreams of astropaths and priests alike. 1,000 worlds hear it. 1,000 minds break beneath it. High above the ruined planet of Virelia 9, the void burns with new arrivals. Dozens of warp trails tear across the black, bleeding light into the darkness. An imperial fleet, vast, solemn, and wrathful, emerges from translation. Their hulls gleam with gold and scripture, their prows carved in the image of angels and skulls. This is not a reconnaissance force. It is retribution. At the heart of the armada sails the Gloriana-class battleship Benediction Eternal, flagship of Lord Admiral Hesteran Vire. Flanked by cruisers of the Adeptus Mechanicus, the red craft of the Martian Forge, and the adamantine icons of the Black Templars, it is the voice of imperial vengeance made flesh. In the ship's grand cathedral bridge, incense coils through the air. Servoscores hum. Choirs of psychers chant counter hymns to drown out the warp-born laughter. At the command pulpit, Admiral Vire stares at the hololith projection of Virelia Numain, a world wrapped in lightning and storms where every scan fails. The machine spirits call it impossible. A voice breaks the quiet. Marshal Serapion of the Black Templars, his armor black and shining like obsidian, steps forward. That is no world, Admiral. That is a heresy given form. You know our duty, the Admiral nods once. Then he gives the order that has ended countless civilizations. Deploy the angels of death. Purge the world in his name. The skies ignite. Drop pods rain from orbit, each a comet wrapped in prayer. Dreadnoughts descend like thunder. Titans from orbit's forges land upon the plains with quakes that split the land. In moments, the dead planet lives again, not with peace, but with war. Starkiller stands at the center of it all, upon a ridge of blackened glass, watching the storm of fire fall toward him. The Orks around him roar in delight. They do not understand the meaning of surrender or retreat. To them, every battle is sacred. The first impact tears apart the horizon. Bolter fire cuts through the smoke. Chainsword scream. The Templars advance with mechanical grace. Purity seals fluttering in the wind, chanting the Emperor's name as they burn through mobs of green bodies. Starkiller feels the storm build. The force within him quivers, the wah around him howls. He closes his eyes and lets the two energies merge again, the measured rhythm of control and the wild pulse of chaos. The sky flashes green, and lightning answers his command. When he opens his eyes, he is no longer surrounded by soldiers or monsters. He is surrounded by possibility. He raises his hand. The nearest Thunderhawk halts in mid-air, caught by invisible pressure.
Its cannons flare desperately, bolts ripping through the air, but the craft cannot move.
With a flick of his wrist, Starkiller crushes it into a sphere of molten metal and lets it fall like a meteor among the ranks below. Predator tanks grind to a halt, their treads lifting from the ground, as though gravity itself has turned traitor. He turns his palm downward, and the vehicles slam into the dirt with the force of orbital bombardment. Shockwaves race outward. Templars charge him through the firestorm, chain swords raised high. He meets them head-on.
One swing of his arm sends a dozen flying.
Another step shatters the earth beneath them. He moves like a force of nature, too fast to follow, too strong to contain, yet for all his power, the Imperium does not yield. For every warrior crushed, another steps forward. For every tank broken, another rolls into the field. They fight not to win, but to fulfill the creed written into their souls. Then the air splits apart. A shadow descends, vast and humanoid, plated in gold and steel. A warlord titan, its reactor burning like a sun, raises its plasma annihilator. The voice of its princeps fills the comms of the fleet. Target acquired. The Starborn walks. Fire the Emperor's wrath. The blast erupts, a beam of light so bright that even the sun blinks. The ground dissolves, mountains fall. For a moment, the entire world is swallowed by white fire. When the light fades, the Titan still stands. But its head is gone, sheared clean from its body. The Colossus collapses, shaking the heavens. And in the crater below, Starkiller stands untouched, his armor cracked, but his body alive, his eyes burning like stars. The Orks roar, their cheers shaking the heavens. Even the Black Templars hesitate. He looks at the armies that have come to destroy him and feels the paradox that defines this galaxy. Faith as weapon, belief as armor, madness as order. He does not hate them.
He simply understands them. He spreads his arms.
The Force and the Warp merge once more, spiraling outward in a shockwave that sweeps across the battlefield. Tanks buckle.
Power armor crumples.
The storm consumes everything in green fire. From orbit, Admiral Vire watches his screens go blank, the entire surface lost in radiation and lightning. His voice is a whisper of awe and dread. In the name of the Emperor.
What have we awakened?
And somewhere, far above the void, the psychic echo of that storm ripples through the warp, reaching the palaces of gods. The Starborn has declared war on the galaxy itself. The storm over Viralia 9 grows so vast that it swallows the night sky. From orbit, the planet looks like an emerald wound pulsing in the dark, a beacon of raw psychic energy that ripples through both real space and the immaterium. What began as a battle has become a rupture in existence. The warp itself answers. The barrier between worlds buckles and breaks. Time fractures. Gravity turns sideways. Ships above the planet are dragged from orbit, their machine spirits screaming as they are torn apart by invisible claws. The surviving Orks and Templars below stop fighting and look up as reality burns away in front of them. The sky tears open like flesh. From that burning rift, something descends. It is not a man, nor a god, but a daemon prince.
A warlord of Tzeentch forged from nightmare and will.
Its wings stretch wider than mountains, its body a shifting labyrinth of eyes and mouths, its weapon a staff made of molten prophecy. The warp screams its name, though no mortal tongue can shape it. It is a herald of madness sent by the god whose offer Starkiller refused. The ground splits as it lands. Every orc within miles is vaporized by the shockwave. Even Starkiller staggers, his senses shattering beneath the sheer, psychic weight of its presence. His skin burns with a cold that isn't cold, his breath catches, and the force within him flickers. The demon's voice is everywhere at once. Thunder, whispers, laughter, flame. You reject the gift of the great architect, and still you dare to wield his fire. Now you will feed the warp with your defiance. The air around Starkiller warps into colorless flame.
Reality bends and screams.
He drops to one knee, his mind assaulted by visions of infinite futures. 1,000,000 deaths, 1,000 victories, countless versions of himself devoured by chaos. For a heartbeat, he almost lets go, almost, but then he feels it. The echo of the Orks cheers, the pulse of belief still humming in the ashes.
The war!
Field surges back through him like breath returning to dying lungs. The force ignites inside his chest. Brilliant and defiant, he rises, lightning coils around him, brighter than ever, laced with both the discipline of the force and the wild chaos of the warp. He spreads his hands,
and the very air shatters. The demon lunges.
Its staff crashes down, carving trenches into the earth, its laughter echoing across dimensions. Starkiller leaps to meet it, propelled by power alone. The two collide in a burst of impossible light. The impact is cataclysmic. Sound ceases. The planet itself convulses. Across the warp, demons and gods turn to watch as a single mortal challenges their realm on equal ground. The demon roars, hurling waves of warp flame that melt stone and bend steel.
Starkiller moves through them like a phantom.
His body bleeds light, his motions a blur of will and instinct. Every strike of his hand sends shockwaves through the Imperium. He calls on the Force, but the Force is no longer pure. It is infused with something else, something primal. His power no longer bends to his command. It rises with his emotion.
Fury becomes speed.
Pain becomes strength. Every scar becomes fuel. The demon's laughter falters.
It strikes again harder.
The staff crashes into Starkiller's chest, throwing him into the air. The shock breaks bone, shatters armor, and hurls him through the flaming ruins of a titan's corpse. For a moment he does not move. The daemon raises its weapon for the final blow. The warp chants in anticipation. Then the world goes still. Starkiller's hand closes around the hilt of one of his sabers. Its crystal flickering between blue and green, light and madness. He drags himself upright, his eyes burning brighter than stars. He speaks, his voice carried on the wind, calm and cold. You think you own this power. You think it's yours. But I don't serve the Force.
And I don't serve you. He lifts his blade. I am the power. He moves faster than thought.
The blade ignites, a beam of searing light cutting through the demon's weapon, its arm, and finally, its chest. Warp fire erupts from the wound. The creature screams, a sound that unravels the air. Starkiller grabs it by the horns and drags it downward, slamming it into the ground so hard that space itself folds inward. The storm detonates. From orbit, the entire hemisphere glows white. The warp tear collapses, sucked inward by its own gravity. The demon's body dissolves into a storm of burning symbols that fade one by one into ash. When the light fades, Starkiller stands alone in the crater, his armor melted, his body trembling. His lightsaber flickers, then dies. He has won. But the victory is hollow. The warp does not forget defeat. It only waits, and as Starkiller looks to the sky, the force within him shudders. Not in warning, but in recognition. For somewhere beyond the stars, the gods of chaos have begun to take him seriously. The man who defied them has just proven he can kill them. The storm has ended, but its echo still hums through every layer of existence. The ground of Virelianheim is glass, a vast crater carved by impossible power. The clouds above no longer move. They twist, frozen into spirals of green fire that never fade. The galaxy's instruments call it a dead world, but something still breathes there. At the crater's center, Starkiller kneels. Steam rises from his armor, warped and broken. The glow in his eyes dims for the first time since his fall into this cursed universe. The force inside him flickers like a dying flame. The warp, that ravenous sea of thought and madness, has left its mark on him forever. He exhales slowly, and when he does, the air trembles. He can feel everything, the pain of every mind that died in the storm, the weight of every soul he has destroyed. In this galaxy, death doesn't end. It lingers.
Every scream, every spark of terror, every prayer for mercy reverberates through the warp.
And now, through him, the force has become crowded. He hears them all. Voices, whispers, screams, the chorus of lives snuffed out by his hands. Not illusions, echoes. Every death he caused has tethered itself to his being, drawn to the void where the pure force once lived. He grips his head, teeth clenched, trying to shut them out. The ground fractures beneath his knees.
Lightning stutters across his body, uncontrolled.
The power he wields, the power that once obeyed him, now surges and recoils like an untamed beast. He was once the master of his own will. Now the warp and the force wrestle inside him for dominion. He can sense his strength growing, limitless, terrifying. But with it comes instability. Each heartbeat feels like a hammer against glass. He is splitting, not physically, spiritually, and through that fracture, the ghosts whisper, "You were born to serve. You were made to destroy. You can't stop. You never stop." He recognizes some of them, the voices of stormtroopers he crushed, rebels he failed to save, Jedi he betrayed, Sith he defied. Each one a wound that refuses to close. Their memories flood through him, each one weighted with the same truth. He has never known peace, only power. The light side offers him guilt. The dark side offers him purpose. The warp offers him nothing but reflection, he screams. The sound cracks the air, echoing through miles of dead terrain. The storm above flashes back to life, lightning spiraling upward instead of down. The force erupts from him uncontrollably, sending ripples across the warp itself. Across the galaxy, psychers drop to their knees, clutching their skulls as a new resonance burns through their minds. A voice, not of the Emperor, not of chaos, but of something else entirely. A being made of will, of contradiction,
of rage that has lost its shape. And yet, amid the chaos, something faint stirs in him.
A whisper beneath the storm. It is his own voice, the one he buried long ago. The quiet, uncertain tone of Galen Marek. He hears himself say, "Stop. You're not meant to be this. You're not meant to be a god." For a moment he almost listens. He lowers his head, his hands trembling, the storm beginning to fade. But then the other voice rises, the one that always wins. "The galaxy made me this." They all wanted power. They all wanted war. He stands again, the ground bending beneath him. His aura flares, half light, half shadow, wrapped in a flickering halo of green and blue flame. The shattered force hums in perfect balance and perfect conflict.
No side dominates. No peace exists. He has become something new.
Not Jedi, not Sith, not man, not monster. A fracture given life. The Starborn turns his gaze to the stars, eyes burning through the veil of reality. And the warp answers back with silence, not in submission, but in acknowledgement. Something in the galaxy has changed forever. The force itself has broken. Silence does not last long in the warp. It never does. The moment Starkiller's scream fades from the shattered world, the Imperium convulses. Waves of thought and emotion crash against themselves in madness. Demons wail, planets shudder, and psychic storms rage without direction. It is as if reality itself has flinched, not from destruction, but from awakening. In the deepest reaches of the warp, 4 thrones stir. Upon the throne of brass and skulls, Khorne leans forward. His vast form glows like molten iron, eyes 2 suns of wrath. He has felt it. A war not fought for glory, nor faith, nor rage, but for existence itself. That he understands, that he respects. But beneath his pride lies something else, unease. The Starborn does not kill for Khorne's pleasure. He kills because he must. The blood god snarls, molten spittle raining down as he speaks, his voice like grinding planets. He stole my war across the garden of excess. Slaanesh lounges upon a throne of silk and bone, her fingers tracing the air as if feeling the memory of Starkiller's scream. It wasn't devotion. It wasn't worship. It was truth. A raw, unfiltered sound that was neither pain nor pleasure, but both intertwined. Her lips curl in delight. He is exquisite, untouched, a melody that sings itself. In the realm of rot and rebirth, Nurgle pauses his work. His swollen hands still beat. The flies grow silent. The Starborn's defiance is not decay. It is renewal through destruction, an endless cycle of death and return. To Nurgle it is nature, ugly, beautiful, inevitable. He chuckles, his voice a bubbling mire. Even gods can learn, and high in the shifting tower, Tsench watches all. The architect of fate moves his many hands across the skein of reality, adjusting threads that no longer obey him. The tapestry of time is torn, the web of prophecy burned at its edges by something that was never meant to exist. He whispers, not to others, but to himself. There was supposed to be order in chaos. Now chaos has found its order. The warp trembles as all 4 gods turn their gaze toward one point. Virelia 9. There, a single mortal stands at the center of creation's wound, glowing brighter than any daemon prince. He is both the calm and the storm, both the destroyer and the proof that something exists beyond their reach. The gods do not speak in words. They communicate through thunder, through instinct, through the pulse of eternity itself. Yet in this moment even they hesitate, for aeons they have shaped all life. Every fear, every prayer, every act of love and war fed them.
But this thing is different. He's not born of belief.
He bends belief itself. The warp feeds him even when he denies it. He is no longer prey. He is competition. Khorne rises, his laughter like the collapse of worlds. If he wishes war, he will have it. Slaanesh smiles, eyes shimmering.
I will make him feel. Nurgle exhales a sigh that smells like the birth of galaxies.
All things rot in time. So will he, but Tsench does not move. His 1,000 eyes remain fixed on the broken weave of fate. In the reflection of one golden iris, Starkiller stands upon the ashes of Virelia 9, staring into the void where the gods dwell. And for the first time in eternity, the changer of ways cannot see what happens next. That, he realizes, is the most dangerous thing of all. The 4 thrones blaze with renewed hunger. Across the warp, their legions awaken, bloodletters sharpening axes, demonettes dancing through screams, plague-bearers rising from filth, horrors giggling in impossible colors.
Armies of gods assembling not against each other, but against one. Their roars shake the Imperium.
The storm becomes a roar of war eternal, and, somewhere within that sea of madness, Starkiller lifts his gaze.
He feels it.
4 presences, vast, ancient, hungry. He does not flee. He does not kneel. He only whispers into the wind, his voice steady and cold. Let them come. Lightning crowns his silhouette. The Force and the Warp coil around him like twin serpents, preparing to strike. The gods of chaos have declared him their enemy, and the man who once served Darth Vader now stands against eternity itself. For the first time since the dawn of the galaxy, the gods prepare for war, not with each other, but for survival. And the galaxy trembles, knowing that what follows will not be a crusade or a prophecy. It will be the reckoning of gods. The galaxy has known endless war. Empires have risen and burned. Demons have devoured worlds, and gods have fought over the scraps of creation. But never seen in all the turning of eternity has the warp itself feared. Until now, the storm that once hung above Virelia Nime no longer belongs to that world.
It spreads.
Across the void, a tidal wave of psychic energy rolls outward, swallowing stars, bending light. Within it walks a single being, Starkiller, no longer bound by flesh or form. His armor glows like molten metal. His eyes blaze like twin suns, burning through time and space alike. The Force and the Warp no longer fight within him. They have become one. The shattered Force has mended into something new. He is not a man anymore. He is not a servant of destiny. He is the storm that destiny fears, and the gods are coming. In the Imperium, the warp churns itself into war. The sky of madness ignites. Rivers of blood, oceans of pleasure, storms of rot, and towers of impossible color rise together for the first time. The 4 realms of chaos, once divided by hunger and pride,
now burn toward a single front. From the brass citadel of Khorne, legions march, rivers of bloodletters and juggernauts thundering through oceans of flame.
Their god leads them himself, every step shaking eternity. His voice is a roar that turns worlds to ash. No mortal defies me. From the palace of Slaanesh, the air fills with whispers and songs.
Millions of demonettes glide like blades through silk.
Their laughter twists stars into spirals, and their god, radiant and terrible, follows, her every movement birthing pleasure and death in the same breath. He will feel before he dies. From the garden of Nurgle, the ground erupts with new life. Plague fleets sailing through the void, spilling rot upon the stars.
Nurgle himself rises from his swamp of creation, smiling with infinite patience.
All that blooms must wither. All that grows must fall, and in the tower of Tzeentch the impossible unfolds. The god of change stretches his hand across the fabric of fate and tears it open. His laughter echoes through every timeline, every possibility. The game ends when I say it ends. The 4 fronts converge on one point in space, the heart of the spreading storm. There, Starkiller waits. He stands upon a drifting fragment of what was once Virelia 9, now suspended in the void like a shard of broken memory. Around him swirl asteroids, shattered ships, fragments of cities,
a field of ruin orbiting his power.
His aura burns so bright that reality bends away from it. The first wave arrives. Khorne's armies crash through the warp, roaring, their axes dripping with eternity's blood. They come with rage unending, a red tide of fury meant to drown existence. Starkiller raises a hand. The void itself answers. Bolts of lightning spiral from his fingertips, not blue, not green, but a light that bends the spectrum itself. They strike the oncoming horde, and 1 billion demons vanish into dust. The survivors charge harder, laughing. The god of war bellows approval from the distance. Good, he fights as I do. Then the second wave strikes. Slaaneash's song sweeps across the stars. The melody coils into Starkiller's mind, promising peace, love, release. He feels it pierce him, every memory, every regret, every ache he ever buried. For a heartbeat he wavers. The storm weakens, but then he remembers. The years of servitude, the endless chains, the lies. He opens his hand and silence falls, the melody dies. The singers turn to ash, and for the first time in her endless life, Slaanesh flinches. Nurgle's plague fills the void next.
Space itself rots.
His laughter rolls like thunder. Filth and disease congeal into shapes that defy reason.
Entire stars die choking.
Starkiller steps forward. Every breath he takes radiates power. The decay recoils from him as if life itself has rejected death. He does not burn it away.
He consumes it.
The rot becomes fuel, the corruption becomes strength, and the father of decay watches, unblinking, as his beloved entropy is devoured by will alone. Finally the sky splits in half. Tsench steps through the rift, his form changing with every word he speaks, a kaleidoscope of thought given flesh. His voice is calm, almost kind. You are beautiful, little spark, but you are still a story.
And I write every story, the stars tremble.
Time reverses. Reality rewinds itself as the god reaches out, intending to erase Starkiller before he began. But when the timeline resets, he is still there. The Starborn stands untouched. He steps through Tzeentch's illusions, his own aura bending cause and effect.
No, he says, his voice rumbling like the birth of a son.
I am the story now, and he strikes. The impact of his will shatters the warp. Planes of existence split. Khorne's rage turns to fury, Slaaneash's song to screams, Nurgle's laughter to silence, and Tzeentch's schemes to chaos beyond his own comprehension. The gods recoil, their forms fragmenting, their realms collapsing into storms of unbound thought. For a moment, there is only light.
A light brighter than creation, then it fades. The gods are gone.
The warp is silent.
Only echoes remain.
And in that silence, Starkiller floats, no longer a being of flesh, no longer bound to the Force or the Imperium. He has become balance itself, a bridge between what was and what will be. Across the galaxy, psychers awake from nightmares to find peace for the first time. The warp winds calm, the storms cease. Even the Astronomicon burns steadier. In the stillness, his voice drifts through the cosmos, faint but eternal. Let the galaxy choose its own fate, now. And then he is gone. Not destroyed, not dead, but transcended. The gods of chaos are silent. The Imperium weeps in awe. The Orks laugh, swearing their god will return. And somewhere beyond the stars, in the quiet that follows eternity, the Force whispers its first new word in 1,000 years. Hope. In the endless dark, stories like this still burn. So stay with the light and subscribe for more tales of gods, war, and the worlds between.